Who said Roger Federer doesn't have the accuracy anymore? Watch him put this overhead right in the crowd into the hands of an adoring Fed fan with RF hat included.
That's right, England as well, Roger. Indeed, baby.
Right into the hands of the autographed RF hat, if you take a close enough look. How's that for a little bit of Swiss accuracy? I just hit my TV instead of the camera. Welcome back to Coffee Break Tennis, folks. This is what I think really went down in Cincinnati. Why did Roger have what many people call kind of an embarrassing loss? I don't think it was such a bad loss. We'll talk about some of the things to take away from Cinci that will become a factor here at the US Open. Also, we talk about why Roger has switched back to this all-black racket, which he has won 3 majors with, instead of playing with the bow tie racket, which he has won 0 majors with. We'll talk about that. Is that the new Federer racket? Yeah. Please. What did Novak Djokovic say that was so crazy and got a bunch of people giggling about it after his match? We'll look at that. All that and more on Coffee Break Tennis. Let's get into it. Mr. Goat. How are you feeling today? Mr. Goat's feeling better. Of course, he has been very upset this week because he failed in the final round of qualifying to be a US Open ball boy when the ball stuck to his little cat claw. You know when the ball kids are like, player can't serve if it's stuck to your claw, Mr. Goat. So first off, let's talk about the obvious. L'éléphant in le room. The elephant in the room. For those of you who are not French speakers like myself and personal friend Benoit Paire. Did I show anyone that yet? Me and Benoit Paire ran into each other in the hotel. We had great fun. Of course, we are personal friends. So, l'éléphant in le room is obviously this court is basically the French Open. I mean, this favors Rafa so much that Joker faces and Fed heads have got unibrows. By the way, Roger recently said I'm wearing Uniqlo from head to toe, and I am right now myself doing the same thing. Come on, Uniqlo, you got to put those logo socks on, though. Got to put that on the menu right now. Can't buy any socks that say Uniqlo on them, so I have flip-flops. They're not Uniqlo. But hey, Roger doesn't even have Uniqlo shoes. No one does. Anyways, back to the court speed. It's super slow. It super favors Rafa. But the humidity is a major factor. And yes, it slows the ball down. You can say that helps Joker and Rafa or any of the more baseline-oriented. I hate to call those guys defensive because they've got massive weapons they do a lot of damage with. But when things aren't working, they do rely on defense a lot to get out of sticky situations. So the humidity is quite sticky indeed, and it can really wear you out. So in the past where we've seen matches like when Roger came back from 2 sets down to love, when was the last time he did it? It seems to happen too often. But I remember a few years ago at the US Open, Roger was down 2 sets to 1, I believe, against Gael Monfils. He came back in these kind of conditions. Having to do things like that will pretty much ruin your whole run. I mean, you could argue that that's why Cilic won that year because it took so much out of Roger. Don't want to take anything away from anyone. But my point is, if we see Rafa, Djokovic, Roger, anyone who wants to win this tournament and believes that they can, if we see them getting down 2 sets to love or even having to play 4-set matches with this kind of humidity, sweating this much, losing this much body fluid, it's really going to hurt their chances. I don't even care if it's Rafa. Even though these conditions favor Rafa's game, if he loses too much fluid out there, starts cramping up, you never know. Anything can happen here. It's all about survival. It seems to me one of the slowest US Opens I've experienced in years, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. You have to build up the point. Usually helps the top guys. I feel the courts are very, very slow. Ash may be a bit faster, but they are quite bouncy, especially the P courts. Did he really say the P courts? I think that means practice courts. You know these courts are very slow. Of course, all Fed heads and unibros around the world, we're hoping for very fast courts this year. Let's just hope that the Australian Open keeps the courts fast like they have done the last couple years. Anyways, though, I still like Roger's chances here because when we look at the highlights, you're going to see he's really going for a lot on the forehand. That was something that wasn't working so well in Cincinnati. And the forehand, even though it was Nishioka, who's, 5'7", Like, there were some times in that third set where Roger was in a little trouble, and he basically just hit, like, big kick serves that were out of reach for Nishioka. Well, that won't work against Rafa, or especially Djokovic, who John Isner can barely kick a serve out of his reach. My bottom line point is, you'll see in the highlights, Roger's really going for that forehand. He wants to see if he can hit through this slow court. I think he has the game to just go 100% offense because he knows, I mean, this is good. He's not a favorite anymore. I mean, he is. But you know, a lot of people, even dedicated Fed fans, I've read in the comments from the last video, think that Roger will be the first of the big three here to go down at the U.S. Open. Yeah, if Roger has some tough matches, the weather will drain him. His chances will be very, very slim. But I think Roger is the guy who has the game, and now he's not feeling the pressure of being expected to win here like he was at Wimbledon. And he kind of is up against the wall knowing he has to play extremely aggressive here, because if he gets stuck and plays this like it's the French Open, like he's Rafa, although Rafa does create a lot of offense, don't want to take away from the offensive machine that Rafa is. But if Roger gets in very long, brutal matches out here, he knows he can't win. So I think Roger actually has a chance to get through these matches in straight sets. As long as he's feeling the rhythm, he can save a lot of energy and get in position to face off with Novak Djokovic in the quarterfinals, who, as we saw, these conditions are not very good for anyone, even someone who's in super shape like Novak, especially if you don't have your game on a particular day and you got to play more defensive and just fight to stay out there. That's going to drain you so much. And of course, the biggest thing here is the weather has to change. You can't get any worse than this. We know there's rain coming and the temperature will cool off. How will the courts play when Roger's actually playing someone like a Novak? If we're lucky enough to see that matchup this year, I certainly hope we are. Let's get into the rest of the show. First off, this highlight is what Novak Djokovic said after his match. This is so funny. All I can say is, I, despite being the biggest Fed head unibro in the world, am more and more of a Djokovic fan every single day.
Martin and I were ice bath one next to another. So we had the two ice baths. We were naked in the ice baths, and it was quite wonderful feeling, you know.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Coffee Break Tennis today. Today's show is brought to you by Consistency, a new online instruction course from Crunch Time Coaching.
Come on. No!
Well, Matt, we just finished up our...
Consistency. If the ball ain't in, you can't win. Click on the link down below if you are a tennis player. You will definitely want, or you can click on the card if you're on the YouTube app. Over here on the side, you'll definitely want to check out this 3-part series that me and tennis coaching genius guru Peter Freeman spent so much effort to put together for you. We really dug deep to make a great free instruction series. Click the link down below to learn more about how you can get consistency in your game. And since we just did the thing about consistency, before we talk more about Cincinnati, I just had to bring this back from the Cincinnati final. This is from the Craig O'Shaughnessy, friend of Crunch Time Coaching. Brain game, one-shot rallies prove critical in the Cinci final. So I love this kind of stuff. And even though the court's playing slower here in the U.S. Open, I still think this kind of stuff, when it comes down to the top players, are going to come into play. So it turned out almost the majority of the points were played on one-shot rallies. 50 total points, meaning just the serve, meaning the return didn't come back. 0 rally length, that's double faults. That means 0 balls went into play. Federer got 2 doubles from Joker. Joker won 4 free points off of Roger doubling. They split it even, 25-25, in the 50 points that were just one serve in, no return put in play. But that's the thing. That shouldn't have happened. That was the biggest problem in this match. And a lot of it had to do with Roger's feet. Just it's hard to return world-class ATP serves when you don't have your feet moving at 100%. Djokovic admitted this. Roger admitted this. Don't tell me I'm making excuses for Roger, because in a moment later in the show, we're going to talk about how we'll read direct quotes from Roger and Djokovic himself, who pointed out that it looked like Roger's feet weren't moving the same quality of footwork that he had earlier matches in the same tournament. Probably had something to do with the fact that you have no rest days, and one of the days you got to play 2 matches in one day. So this 25 and 25 thing, this is not typical stuff, because yes, Roger typically will be able to get a lot of unreturned points off of his first serve. They did it very differently. They broke it down here. Djokovic, 4 aces, 21 return errors, 11 backhand, 10 forehand from Federer. That was the part that's not typical. Don't expect to see that at the U.S. Open. That had a lot to do with the legs. Roger Federer rallies won 11 aces, same number, 25, but 11 aces versus 14 return errors from Djokovic. That's more typical. Roger was serving pretty well, got a lot of return errors, got a lot of aces. That's what he's usually going to do. If he has the legs under him, one, he doesn't get as panicky and nervous and goes for too much with the extra double faults. I know 4 double faults is not a lot, but for Roger's a lot. Regularly plays matches with 1 or 0 double faults. I don't think Djokovic breaks Roger as easily in this tournament, in this final, if Roger has the legs under him at 100% or something closer to 100%. So let's look at some highlights that I snagged from the TV and also some highlights that were sent in. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm saying your name wrong, but Jaydeep Gruhl. Jaydeep sent in some really cool stuff from he's about halfway up, and I just think it's really cool to see the perspective of someone sitting in the crowd. Right here, I wanted to highlight this because early in the match, you can see Roger is going for big forehands. He says, oh, this court's very slow. How do you like 105 mile per hour forehands, a slow court? Roger is trying to find the rhythm on that because he knows in this slow of a court, he's going to have that forehand firing to have a chance against the very best players in the world. Bottom line is, even though Roger struggled a little with the conditions in the end of the third set, kind of lost focus for a little bit, I don't fault him too much. It's tough to play in these conditions for everyone. As you can see, we've had at least 5 or 6 on the men's side retire from play just because the conditions were too hard. They couldn't finish the match. Of course, one of those big ones was David Ferrer, who's had a wonderful career, and we're very sad to see him go. Roger had something nice to tweet about David Ferrer. Throw that up on the screen really quick so you can see that. But we continue on. One of the things you may have noticed in those highlights is that Roger is using the black racket. One of my 3 reasons why I think Roger is going to be A-okay here at the U.S. Open as long as he can keep the rhythm. Here's Roger talking about why he's using the black racket.
Same like the old one. I just felt like I wanted to have that one again. Played so well with it.
I think it's as simple as that. I think Roger, he's saying, yeah, it's because it's the night matches, all black. Darth Federer invented in the, 2008 U.S. Open where we saw Darth Federer for the first time. Sure, that's part of it, but I think it's a little superstition. I think Roger needs any little edge, and you get a little edge from thinking, okay, this is the one where I just won 3 majors. So I like the choice by Roger. I think it definitely won't hurt, can only help his chances. So reason 1, the old racket. It's got to give Roger a little mental boost. Reason 2, you've probably already picked up on it by now. I think Roger is going to feel better here because there's way less expectations, especially after everyone's seen how tough these conditions are. Makes him kind of a dark horse. Always helps Roger, just like it did in 2017. But my reason number 3, and we got to look at some of the stuff from Cincinnati where Roger lost to Novak Djokovic, is that I do believe Roger feels like he's closer to where he needs his game to be again. He has, think about it, like taking the long breaks, skipping the French and all the clay, I'm sure it helps keep you fresher, but in some ways it's got to hurt you because you're not getting as many matches in. It's got to be so tough to schedule your matches now at this stage of the career for Roger because you got to try to factor in a lot of rest time, but you got to factor in enough play time, match time to get the rhythm. So as usual, Roger, he always talks to Tagesanzeiger, which is a Swiss publication like Blick, 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 Blick. And he always gives better stuff in those interviews to the Swiss German speaking folks. So let's take a look at that first. Something is still missing, but I may be able to play being more relaxed thanks to the matches I won here. Talking about Cincinnati. Scary for any Fed fan when Roger says something is missing in the game. But I see this more as an optimistic line here from Roger, saying something is still missing. But here's the good news. The most important thing for me is that the serve works. I found the rhythm. I can have a good variety both on first and second serve. The baseline game depends a lot on the legs. This is the main difficulty in Masters 1000s. You meet the best players all days, and on the 5th match, you end up being more tired than usual. That's true. On the 5th match, Roger had played, because I saw him on Tuesday in Cincinnati. Wednesday, he had a rest day, which I was leaving Thursday morning, so I was really hoping to see him twice. And also, I thought, he's got to play 4 more matches. You got to play 5 to win here. 6 if you don't have the seeding to get the first round bye. But Roger, of course, had the bye. He plays one on Tuesday. That means he's got to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 in a row. That alone I didn't like for Roger's chances, but especially when it kept raining and I realized he's going to have to play 2 matches in one day. The fact that Roger got there and still had a fairly competitive match, at least on the serve alone, is a really good sign to if he's feeling as good as he says he is at the U.S. Open. If he's feeling that good like he's been telling all of us, I think he might be able to play pretty darn well, a lot better, and maybe not enough for Djokovic. Again, it all comes down to who can get out of these matches in straight sets. You got to get out of these matches in straight sets and just have enough energy in the tank when you get to a big opponent like a Rafa, Joker, Roger, Stan Wawrinka, Marin Cilic, not so much as the other guys. And of course, the other favorite here, I think, Juan Martín del Potro. Not an overwhelming favorite, but still a guy who can do it. Djokovic also commented after the match in Cincinnati, pretty much the same thing. Djokovic said he misses a lot of returns. Roger obviously not at his best. Also seems like a difficult time to move, not playing as well as he did in previous matches this week. But in the same, I thought I was solid. Even Djokovic admitted it. But of course, very classy Federer in his press conference said, look, this shouldn't be about me. It was horrible. I feel awful about the way I played, missing those second serves. Inexplicable, Roger pointed out. Yes, that's true. But this shouldn't be about how many second serves I missed putting into play. This should be about an incredible achievement. Congratulations to Joker Nole for winning all the Masters. I got to say, I'm proud to say I was there when he won his first one in Miami, I believe 2007 over Guillermo Cañas. That was my first tennis match I ever saw in person. I'll never forget it. And I got to thank Joker for it, even though at the time I was thinking, why isn't Roger Federer here? Well, there you go, folks. Thanks for watching another exciting edition of Coffee Break Tennis. Be sure to keep your eyes out for Rafa. Oh, sorry we didn't talk much about Nick Kyrgios. I'll just say this. His match was wildly entertaining. Nothing's different. I wouldn't bet my life on him to beat Roger or to win the U.S. Open. Thanks for watching Coffee Break Tennis. We'll see you tomorrow. See ya!